Welcome to another edition of PENSDOWN. Here we sit with journalists and get to understand what they go through. We call it their journalism journey. This program is dedicated to the behind-the-scenes issues, the things journalists go through before they get you the news, before they are able to get that personality whose interview you enjoyed, or before they can put together that program which you will never forget because of the manner in which things turned out. Today, I've been joined by another colleague, Kojo Yankson. He is a broadcast journalist, author, and host of the Super Morning Show on Joy 99.7 FM. In 2014, he returned to Ghana after 12 years in England to work on a project at the University of Cape Coast. This led to him spending some time at ATL FM, where he hosted the morning show. A chance trip to Accra brought him to the attention of the managers of the multimedia group, whom, having been impressed by his eloquence, promptly poached him. On the 7th of April 2014, Kojo officially assumed the hot seat as the host of the Super Morning Show. In a matter of months, he stamped his unique personality all over Ghana's biggest, most influential and authoritative breakfast show. His eloquent and engaging style, along with his penchant for asking tough questions, not to mention his striking fashion sense, endeared him to his audience and won for him a cult following on radio and on social media. In his first year as host of the Super Morning Show, the program won the coveted CIMG Award of Radio Program of the Year. With an audience of about 6 million discerning listeners, the suave Cape Coaster has the nation's attention from 5:50 to 10 GMT, 5 days a week, with a silky delivery of a captivating blend of political, social, and personal issues in a magazine show that is doubtless Ghana's favorite breakfast. He has interviewed a host of notable people, from presidents to priests, performers to prisoners, as well as philanthropists to politicians, and everything in between. He spent a year as co-host of the AM show on Joy News TV, Ghana's only 24-hour news TV channel, before returning to the Super Morning Show on Joy FM in May 2020. He also currently hosts the super slick car show called AutoZone on Joy Prime TV and is about to launch a travel show called Joy Explore on the same channel. He is the founder and CEO of A Plus Consulting, a consortium of project management professionals and entrepreneurs who have successfully designed and delivered projects in Accra, Cape Coast, London, Manchester, Milton Keynes, Nottingham, New York, and Paris. Kojo is the founder of a life-saving project called the Sugar Project. This is an initiative primarily designed to help people living with diabetes to live right. It is structured to mainly answer questions on how to manage diet, medication, and lifestyle to achieve the best possible quality of life. Kojo, thanks for joining me today.
The pleasure is all mine.
Right. You talked about returning from the UK to ATL FM, but I want to find out, was that the beginning of your romance with the media or your journalism journey, if I may put it that way?
Actually, it wasn't. It all started when I was about 17 years old, sometime in 2006. In 1996.
Okay.
In Tema. I went to visit an auntie of mine, and in the morning, my job was to wash her husband's car. I think one morning I must have been cleaning the interior and my elbow must have hit the radio button and it came on. And there was the voice of somebody called Uncle Tommy, who everybody seemed to know. Everybody seemed to be calling in to talk to and chat and joke with. And Uncle Tommy seemed to know everything. He knew where there was traffic in town. He knew what was happening at the National Theatre that weekend. He knew where the president was and what the president was doing. He knew the price of Fan Yogo. He knew what promotions Shell was doing. He knew everything. It seemed like
magical.
the most amazing job. Yes, I was so enthralled. And I remember thinking that day, I would love to do a job like this, where I know so much and everybody's coming to me to find out what's happening. And I'm telling people what's happening. So that's when the dream began.
Okay.
Maybe a year or two later, when I was in my first or second year at University of Cape Coast, in Valco Hall, I bumped into a group of guys, carrying a bunch of equipment, going up the stairs. I asked them where they were going. They said they were going to set up a radio station. And actually, I was interested, so I followed them up. And for the next 2 or 3 days, I kept watching them as they set things up, put things together, put up an antenna, and then they started test transmission. Now, they were recording sweepers, liners, little jingles and things to play to identify the station. And I was watching them and I kept coming up with ideas, of funny things they could say for their liners and sweepers. In the end, I ended up recording about 10 or 11 sweepers, for this station, which eventually became Radio Valco, the second campus radio station in Cape Coast. Radio Valco was a runaway success. Everybody loved it. They brought me in as the host of their morning show. And that was the beginning of my, as you put it, love affair with broadcasting. So it lasted throughout my first degree studies until I completed and moved to England, where I thought I might continue. I remember applying for some jobs at the BBC, Channel 4, but I was often one out of 200, 300 applicants for an internship, a non-paying internship. I had to survive. So very often I would go about halfway through the process and then I would give up and think, I can't live on this. I can't feed myself on this. And I would go and find some wala to do instead. So I always had in the back of my head that one day I would come back to broadcasting. But as you read, at the beginning, it was a bit of a surprise encounter that led me to the job of my dreams, hosting the very same super morning show that I heard Tommy Annan Forson hosting that day so many years ago.
Now you have gotten into the seat of about the most coveted morning show. You have competitors, you have, let me say, enemies, if I put it this way. How are you keeping yourself on that seat? What is that one thing that you are doing which is keeping you a step ahead of the competition all the time? Because don't forget, before you came in, you had Komladumo, who occupied that seat. Huge figure who had the attention of the whole nation. Let me put it that way. Kojo Yankson was also another one. Impressive success. You have come in and the growth has been phenomenal. What is the magic here?
I have to say that for me, the thing that seems to work, anytime I want something to grow, I start off by being a student. That seems to work for me. When I was hosting the morning show on Radio Valco all those years ago, during my commercial breaks, I had a little radio set that I would put on the top louver blade in the studio and stretch out the antenna and put it at a certain angle so that I could catch Joy FM in Accra. So that I could listen to Komla Dumont during my show's commercial breaks. Because I was such a student of what he was doing. I wanted to understand, radio is it's a performance, right? So like any good performance, you don't tell your audience how you achieve the final result. You just give them the final result. Your audience doesn't want to know how you achieve the final result. They just want the result. They want you to give them information. They don't want to know how you got it. They want to trust that you will always give them the right information, but they don't want to know the secret behind the magic trick.
Yeah.
But I was listening to people like Komla Dumont, Kojo Opon Nkrumah, Akwesi Sapon, Kweku Sechi Ado. I was listening to these people and trying to figure out the magic trick, trying to figure out how they do it so I can do it too. So I had that student mentality.
Okay.
You know, and I would ask questions. I would observe people. I do it to this day.
Okay.
To this day, I mean, you may think that at the moment where, you know, at the top, we're number one, so there's nobody to look up to. There are millions of people to look up to. And I'm always picking good examples to learn from. So I learned from Komla Dumont. I learned from Kojo Opon Nkrumah. I figured out how they do it. But most importantly, when I came to this job, I understood that there's no way I can become the next Komla Dumont, or the next Kojo Opon Nkrumah, or the next Tommy Annan Forson, or Dusty Wayne, or whomever I looked up to.
Yeah.
I knew that my job was to be the first Kojo Yankson. So instead of trying to fill their shoes, I brought my own shoes.
Oh, yeah.
And every single day, I am aware of my competition. So I never think to myself like, oh, I'm in the lead. I never think that way. I always think like the underdog. I always ask myself, today is day one. How am I going to make people remember me? What can I do today that I've never done before? What can I do today so that my audience who have been listening to me for 8 years will still feel today like they are always making the right decision when they choose my show?
Yeah.
So that's it. What can I do differently? That's the secret. That's the secret. And as you can imagine, you're in this industry. It's not easy to come up with something new every day. But the truth is there is something new. So my job is to find it. However difficult it may be, my job is to find it, to keep my audience fresh and keep them guessing, keep them excited. And every morning I want people to think, what's he going to do today? If I can get that, I'm doing well.
What has been the most difficult interview you've had in studio? I know there are several remarkable ones, but which one stands out for you as the most difficult, or rather the most challenging?
I actually knew you would ask me this. I kind of imagined you would. And until you asked it, I thought I knew the answer I was going to give. But the minute I heard the question, I came up with a different answer. So I was originally going to tell you about an interview I had with Mahama Yariga, which was very difficult because he simply would not admit the bare facts in front of him. You know, he was a minister at the time, Minister for Information, and it was his job to make the government look good. There was I think it was to do with Suba being paid for no work done back in 2014. We had this very contentious interview where I kept presenting facts and he kept acting like they didn't exist, or like what I was saying wasn't true. And I got very frustrated, you know, and by the end of the interview, I felt like we got nowhere. I felt like my audience got no information. They got nothing out of it, you know, and I felt like it was a colossal waste of my time. I was going to tell you about that, but I remembered another one just in this minute. I don't know if you recall, there was a time under the NDC when Samuel Osemensa, who is the big boss at City FM.
City FM, yes.
Yes, got arrested by the BNI. I don't even remember why, but there was this day when he was arrested and taken into the BNI for interrogation. I think they kept him overnight and released him the following morning, something like that. Now, the following morning, my producers called him and said, "We'd like to interview you on your arrest." He said, "Sure." He didn't even hesitate. He said, "Sure, call me." So we called him, put him on air. And I started the interview. I said, "So we have Samens on the line. He's just been released from the BNI. He's agreed to speak to us. Samens, good morning. How are you feeling?" He said, "I'm fine. Is that why you called?" I said, no, we called to find out, about your arrest and what happened. He said, okay, go ahead. And I said, okay, what happened? He said, well, I got picked up by the BNI. I've just been released. What else do you need to know? I was shocked. I thought, what? Why is he? At a point, I asked him a question and he said, well, you called me. And I thought to myself, he could have said no when my producers asked if he wanted to speak to us, but he didn't. He agreed to speak to us and then proceeded to give no information whatsoever in the interview, and rather made me seem like I was bothering him. It was terrible. In the end, after about 4 questions, I had to just say thank you and leave it at that. Of course, next thing we heard, he was on his own station giving a full interview with all the details, all the juicy details of what happened. That's when I understood what had been done. That's when I understood the trick that had been played on us. And kudos to him. It was a big lesson to me. Of course, our competitors are very competitive, for lack of another word, and they certainly won't do us any favors. They don't have to. They don't owe us anything. And it was a big lesson for me to learn that day, that no one is going to do me any favors. Everybody wants the top spot. I can never expect my competitor to hand anything to me on a silver platter. Yeah. I walked into that. I will never forget that. And since then, of course, it's been a big lesson. I have always understood the necessity to prep a guest, and ensure that you and the guest have agreed on how the interview is to go. And if there is any deviation, you must have a plan B. You must have a parachute. You must have a way out. I learned that lesson that day, and I thank him for it. He really contributed to my development as a journalist. I don't hold it against him at all. I thank him for it. I'm really grateful to him for that lesson. But that was definitely my worst moment in an interview in my whole career.
Now, one of the key features of your work particularly is that feedback is immediate, or rather in very technical journalistic language, you'll say relatively delayed, because of course it has to be processed through gadgets and all that. After that interview, which for you stands out as the most challenging? The SMSs and the WhatsApp messages and the feedback, even through the calls. What?
The one thing I've learned about being on the multimedia, any of the multimedia platforms, particularly Joy, is that our audience is very unforgiving, for good reason. They expect the absolute best from us. We're not allowed to make the kinds of mistakes that others would make, because we claim we're the best. We claim we're operating at the highest standard, so we better do just that. And so when we get things wrong, our audience does not let us forget it. I'll give you an example just before I tell you how they responded to the Samen's interview. A few days ago, maybe 2 days ago, Kwesi Arthur, popular Ghanaian musician, had a listening party for his new album. And a Ghanaian socialite, I think her name is Ifia Odo, attended in a very provocative outfit, very revealing outfit.
It was all over social media.
That's right. Now, somebody from Joy News interviewed her. I think the interview was to do with Fix the Nation. She fixed the country. So she used to be a part of that movement. So I think the journalist wanted to get some information about her current relationship with Fix the Country. So they interviewed her. Now, while the interview was going on, while the journalist had the Joy News mic to her face, somebody else took a picture of her in her revealing dress with a Joy News microphone in front of her.
Yeah.
Now, of course, I don't know whether Joy News has published the interview, but when they do, they will obviously crop it and make sure that it doesn't show any of the outfits that people considered to be revealing. But that photo was not taken by Joy News. It was not put out by Joy News, but it made no difference. There was a Joy News microphone in the picture. So the entirety of social media descended on Joy News for interviewing someone dressed like that. And the insults were phenomenal because our audience expects a certain standard. And in that picture, which they thought was put out by Joy News, in that picture, they didn't see that standard. And so they descended upon us. That's how our audience is. Completely unforgiving. If I was if I had wanted to live without criticism, I would have gone to be a secretary or a typist somewhere, where if I type and I make a mistake, I can just pull out the paper, wrap it up, and put it in the bin and start again. In this job, your mistakes follow you forever. So the Samen's interview obviously drew blood because our audience were very disappointed. They thought, we tuned in because we want to find out what happened. You finished the interview, we don't know what happened. Why did you waste our time? And they didn't think it was Samen's fault. They thought it was our fault.
What was the first day like when you had to sit in that seat? A seat whose previous occupants you had been listening to with a lot of reception difficulty all the way in Cape Coast. And of course, some of whom you had admired from afar and even close. How was your first week? Let me put it that way, your first week at work.
Listen, I need to help. You need to imagine the context and circumstance through which I came to this job. I had dreamt of it my entire adulthood. I wanted to do this job. But of course, I never really thought I'd get the opportunity. Then this chance meeting in Accra results in the programs director at the time, Kojo Yankson, taking one look at me and deciding that I want this guy to host the morning show. So I go from, just like that, I go from impossible dream to it's happening on Monday. Unlike Komla Dumont, who came and understudied and had other jobs and went and did Mobitel Traffic Watch and did this and did that and had the opportunity to, when he came to Joy, he didn't come to stay. He was a student. He just came for a short time. But while he was there, he started to see the potential, the opportunities, and he grabbed each one and became the Komla Dumont. Unlike Kojo Nkrumah, who was poached from university campus and trained, groomed for months and months and months, understudied Komla to the point where he was able to seamlessly take over. Unlike these people, in my case, somebody saw me on Thursday and put me on air on Monday.
Wow.
There was no training in between or orientation or any. In fact, by the time I started hosting the Super Morning Show, I didn't know the name of the receptionist. I didn't know the name of my producers. They switched on the microphone and said, go. Luckily, I was prepared. Like I said, this is my dream job. They have no idea how many nights I'd been lying in my bed, picturing myself hosting the show, doing little monologues to myself, imagining how I would have said this differently, picturing how I would have done this or how I would have given my audience this statistic instead of that one. How I have played that moment in my head daily for years. So, yes, maybe Kojo Nkrumah had months of grooming. Maybe Komla Dumont had years of observation to get himself there. But I had years of hosting that show in my head. So on that first day, when they switched on the microphone, I was ready. Except that I made the biggest blunder in the first 2 minutes of broadcast, of being on air. When first I wanted my audience to relate to me. So I first talked about how this is my first day at work. Do you remember your first day at work? Do you remember how nervous you were? Do you remember how you didn't know where, the coffee was or where, who could help you with what? Well, I feel exactly the same. But you know what? We're going to figure it out together. We're going to have a great time doing it. My name is Kojo Yankson, blah, blah, blah. And then at 6 a.m., I said, it's time for the 8 o'clock news. I didn't even realize what I was saying. I smoothly opened the microphone for the 8 o'clock news for the 6 o'clock news to proceed. And afterwards, the whole team had a good time laughing at me for my horrible blunder. But I think even that turned out for good, because it ended up reminding my audience that I'm a human being, I'm just like them. I make mistakes. And that first week was a great learning curve. Everybody was so supportive. These people whose names I said I didn't know, the receptionists, some of my producers, they all rallied around me with the aim of making me succeed. And that's the culture at multimedia. No matter who you are, yes, I mean, there are people who don't want your success. There are people who might, wish for your downfall, or who wish they were in your place. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. When that on-air sign comes on, we all want you to succeed, because we're all inexorably tied to the brand. Yeah. And it doesn't matter who is on air. If that person is doing well, it looks good for us. If that person is doing badly, it looks bad for us. You have no idea how many emails and text messages I get when there is a mistake on myjoyonline.com. Nobody cares that I don't work for myjoyonline.com. Nobody cares about that. They see the word joy in there and they associate that brand with me. And as far as they are concerned, I'm the face of that brand. So they will complain to me that there's a mistake on myjoyonline.com. And of course, I can't tell them, oh, I'm sorry, I don't work there. Go and look for those who work there. No, I have to accept responsibility for that mistake that I probably haven't even seen because I haven't been on my Joy Online that day. I have to take responsibility for that mistake, apologize for it, and take responsibility for getting it corrected. So I can come back to this person and say, we fixed it. How does it look now? So that culture at Joy of supporting everyone to do well, it's something that I met when I came, and it continues to this day. And because of that, my first week at work was a lot less difficult than it could have been in light of the circumstances through which I came to the job.
Another thing I want to find out, for what you do, you make more enemies probably than friends. I'm talking about the newsmakers, not your listeners or your audience. You make more enemies rather than friends. There will definitely be attempts to bait you to compromise. Sometimes certain things are packaged in a manner that will look like, okay, so this is a gift, but your acceptance will be read with a different spectacle. How are you keeping yourself away from all these antics such that you still have the authoritative voice needed to command the morning from 5:50 a.m. to 10 a.m. as you've been assigned?
I think I've been fortunate, or perhaps in the beginning I was fortunate. I had the opportunity to learn from other people's mistakes. And I also had people who gave me good advice. Kwesi Chum, the owner of Multimedia, gave me some of the best advice that has steered me clear of some of these things. He said to me, look, nobody will pursue your interest over their own. There's nobody out there in this world, apart from maybe my parents, who will pursue my interest over their own. There's nobody like that. So no matter how close and friendly you become with any person in power, you need to understand that that person is pursuing that friendship for their interest, not yours. And if you can keep that at the front of your mind, you won't make certain mistakes. So of course, the temptations are there, the traps are there. Politicians will try anything. Money, women. In fact, they try women more than money, in my experience anyway. They will find ways to compromise you because it's in their interest to own you. So that when there is something that needs to be said, you can't say it. It's in their interest. So they will always be looking for opportunities to do that. So if you regard everything as a trap, you will never be trapped. Luckily for me, I can feed myself and I can feed my family. I don't have to, I don't sleep on the streets. Once that is taken care of, everything else I get is extra. So if really somebody is offering me anything, no matter how juicy it is, if I can see that it is extra on top of what I need, which I already have, if I can see it as extra, it is easy to say no to it.
Okay.
If I know that my life doesn't depend on it, it's easy to say no to it, no matter how attractive it is. Whether it's a package of money, whether it's a car, whether it's a woman, no matter how attractive it is. If I understand that I already have what I need, and I've earned that through the work I do, then it's easy to say no to extra.
What about
I
threats?
suppose is it.
What about threats? Sometimes where persuasion fails, force is applied. You have a reputation for sometimes calling out people that are seen to be iniquitous on the show when you are convinced that the facts as you have it or as has been presented makes it clear that this person is in error, this person is corrupt, this person did not act well. You are noted for not keeping quiet over such matters. How many threats are you receiving or do you receive?
Without going into too much detail, let me just say that the threats are a real part of our daily life, daily life. And they don't always come from the politician himself or the businessman himself or herself or whomever it is that you have exposed or are threatening to expose. The threats don't always come from that individual, but from those who depend on that individual for their livelihoods. So some cousin of a minister somewhere who was expecting a V8 from the minister, and the minister has to disappoint him because Kojo Yankson just exposed some scheme that he was about to embark on, which would have got him millions so that he could have bought the V8 for you. That cousin is the threat. Not the minister who has 100 other schemes running, but the cousin or the foot soldier or the constituent. Those are the threats, and those are daily threats. Sometimes they'll tell you about it. Sometimes they'll just try something. And you have people you care about. I have a son. I have to protect him and not just me. And this job, you can either do it well or do it badly. Either way, you will disappoint someone. If you do it well, you will disappoint those who care about you, because your family wants you to go home and go to work and come home safely. But when you're doing your job well, you're putting yourself at risk. And so the chances of you coming home safely are reducing the better you are at your job. So your family thinks you are selfish, that you are so bent on doing a good job that you don't care that you might deprive them of your existence, or you might end up losing your life, and they will lose you. So they think you are selfish when you're doing a good job. When you're doing a bad job, your audience thinks you are selfish. That's a part of your audience. Thinks you are selfish because you are not giving them what they came to you for. They expect you to speak for them. They expect you to defend them. They expect you to do the right thing. So who are you going to disappoint? Are you going to disappoint your audience or your family that cares about you? Now, I understand the journalists who choose not to disappoint their family. And so they end up doing a bad job, or brushing things aside, or not saying things as they are, letting things slide, allowing people to get away with things, so that their family will feel comforted that they will be safe. Nobody is going to target them. I understand journalists who make that decision, but I sometimes look at the big picture. If I disappoint these two groups, which of them will get over it? My audience will never get over it. If I disappoint them, they'll never come back to me. So in the end, I lose my job anyway. I lose my position anyway. I lose my relevance anyway. My family will get it in the end. Whether their worst fears come to pass or not, they will get it. If, God forbid, something were to happen to me, my family will still understand. They will see in the end that it was because I was doing a good job.
Yeah.
And when my reputation lives after me, my family will see that I did the right thing.
Yeah.
If nothing happens, if nothing bad happens, I manage to survive all of this and have a successful career, the career will speak for itself. My family will be proud of me for having stuck with it, even when they thought I shouldn't. So out of these two groups, only one of the disappointments is temporary. The other one is permanent. So I will choose the temporary disappointment over the permanent one any day.
Wow. There's a running debate on PENSDOWN, this program. I want to pick your thoughts on it. Should journalists be licensed?
Now, first, I have to say that I haven't been to school to study journalism. Okay. I'm by practice, not by qualification, if you will.
Well, by the GJ's definition, be it by practice or by training, you qualify to be called as
I agree with that. There was a time in this country when that was a debate, by the way. The late, great Komla Dumo won Journalist of the Year, and many people thought he didn't deserve it because he never went to journalism school. So yes, I understand that debate exists, but the question here is, should they be licensed? There is a need for truth to be unencumbered. There is a need. And with everything that is a need, there is a cost. Yeah. The cost of unencumbered truth is that a few lies will slip through.
That's true.
The cost of free speech is that there will be some irresponsible speech. That's the cost. Now, every time you hear people debating the need for any kind of restriction or muzzling or sanctioning or censoring of free speech and journalism, I hear somebody who wants the benefit without the cost. We have to pay the bill. We have to pay the price. We are not all righteous. We are not all, sanctified humans. Yeah. Not every politician is righteous. In fact, too few of them.
That's right.
Okay, there are corrupt politicians. Does that mean we shouldn't have politics? I mean, does that mean that in order for you to become a politician, you must have a license? What would the license achieve, first of all? What would it do? It would mean that someone has to pay some money in order to operate in this space.
Pay some money to who? If I may play the devil's advocate, maybe the licensing will mean a certain structured examination to ensure that products seen as journalists live up to a certain billing.
Yeah. But are we not already seeing the system properly ranking journalists based on their competence? Is that not already happening?
That may be through the back door or informally.
Well, actually, I think the audience does a very good job of ranking journalists based on their competence. They won't listen to you if you're spewing chaff. And if they listen to you, for example, we have some journalists who are shock jocks. They come on air and just spend an hour insulting people, and they get huge followership while that is happening. But those people, they come to you for that. They come to you for the nonsense. That's what you are to them. You are a producer of nonsense. So when they feel like nonsense, they come to you. But if they want the truth, they know where to go. If they want to know if indeed, God forbid, the president has passed away, they know where to go. If they want to know if indeed this person said that, they know where to go. Yeah. And if they want nonsense, they know where to go. So the audience, the audience knows. They know who is doing well and who is not. I don't think we need to spoon feed them a ranking or some sort of elite. I don't think they need it. They know. So if you do a good job, you'll attract the right audience.
How much of a challenge is the birth of social media to mainstream media?
I've always seen it differently from others. I have always thought that it's an opportunity. You know, people think TV came to kill radio and social media came to kill TV and so forth. Why must anything kill anything? It's all about adapting. It's all about adapting. Go where your audience is.
Yeah.
So if your audience used to be in their house or in their car, tuning in to listen to you, and today they are on Facebook, they are on Instagram, go there. Go and put your product there. Just go where your audience is. It's just like you said, you know, if you are a bread seller, you've got a tray of bread on your head. Yeah. You want to sell it. You won't walk into the jungle to sell it. You know, you have to go and find people. So you will go where the people are. You will walk till you find that residential area or, you know, that commercial area where there are people who eat bread. So if you have a stand and people aren't coming to you, pick it up and take it to the people. That's all that social media has done. It is just telling us where our audience is. So what we have to do is take advantage and go and meet them. And it's a wonderful audience of people who give you instant feedback, who connect you to thoughts and ideas. Sometimes producers don't even have to do any work. They just have to go on social media, find out what people are talking about, and that's the content for our show the next day.
I think that may be the reason even your setup, your studio setup now is more of a TV arrangement than the hard radio thing where you have the microphone fixed to the table with branches facing the speakers and all that.
Yes, you picked up on it, and that's exactly the case. We are producing for a mass audience, and so we have to set up a studio that can allow us to do exactly that. You know, and we've got some of the best equipment, you know, on the market today. You know, multimedia spent good money to set up this adaptable studio, which we can just continue to adapt and upgrade as we go on, so that we are wherever the audience goes, we can find them.
Attrition in the media is very high. So many highly trained, qualified, competent brains are leaving the fold. Some are exiting into corporate communications or public relations. Others are also finding themselves in entirely different fields that are unconnected to communications. Where you sit, sometimes automatically, your position automatically makes you a bit of a repository of information. You have colleagues, you have seniors, you have even juniors, some of whom have joined this attrition bandwagon. What are you hearing? What is occasioning this kind of trend?
It's hard to speak for others, to be honest. It's very difficult to explain why anybody would walk away from this. But I think some of the factors are obvious. You know, this is a noble profession, but not the highest paid one. You know, there are so many radio stations, but so few of them are making a profit. You know, so it's easy to understand why people would jump at opportunities that will pay better. Not everybody is in this for passion. You know, majority of people do a job because they must earn a living. That's majority of people. It is a very small percentage that do it because they love it. You know, and the truth is, you can fail at things, whether you love them or hate them, you can still fail at them. You know, so sometimes after people have been doing something they don't love for a period of time, they just realize that, look, I might as well spend that effort that I'm using in this thing I don't love. I might as well spend it in something I love, so that if I succeed, the reward is bigger.
Yeah.
You know, and if I fail, I still enjoy the process. So there are many people who leave journalism because that was not their first love to begin with. That's not why they wake up in the morning. You know, So you understand when some people walk away. And sometimes when they walk away, all you have to do is cast your mind back to the work they were doing to understand why they walked away. And when people are really, really good at it and they walk away, they come back. That's almost always the case. The big legends, they will say, oh, I'm going off to do politics. I'm going off to do this. I'm going off to do that. And before you know it, they're back. Or whatever they go and do, they'll find a way of connecting it to journalism anyway.
Yeah.
Because what you love is what you love.
That's true. That's true. How many more years do you want to go before walking off the microphone? In fact, in this circumstance, you have a screen and a microphone. You are not an out-and-out radio person because the camera is always on you. How many more years do you want to go before you bow out of the media?
I certainly want to bow out when the applause is loud. But in my mind, I have such a catalog of goals that I want to achieve in this profession that I have no way of knowing how many years it'll take me to achieve them. I may not do them all in the same role. I don't know how that will go. How long I'll stay in this particular job. I think I will be in the media for the rest of my working life, but the capacity might be different. At some point, I might be an owner. Who knows?
Yeah.
The goals are chow.
That's right.
I pray that God gives me time to do them all, and I pray that my audience continues to enjoy what I do, because the minute they stop loving it, I stop doing it.
My last but one question. The media lost one of the finest materials, your own Elvis Kwashi. Tell us the kind of person he was to you personally.
Koku, as many of us called him. He was the heart of that place. I don't know anyone who could take such a big professional role and make it such a close and personal endeavor.
Wow.
I don't know anyone who could have done it like that. But somehow, Elvis made everybody who worked for him feel like without them, the business won't run. And of course, he was right to make them feel that way, because that's what brought the best out of us. I mean, every day I had the option of calling in and saying, "Oh, I'm not well. I'm tired. I want a day off." I could have done that. There were days when I felt tired, but the only reason why I would, in spite of how I feel, get up and take a shower and drive through the darkness to come and host the show was because somebody had made me believe that without me, everything falls apart. And that got the best out of us. He cared about us personally. He didn't only care about what he could get from us professionally. To date, he's still the only manager who had ever been to my house. He didn't have to. But he wanted to. That's what marks him. That's what sets him apart. I always say that, look, we all worked at multimedia, but we worked for Elvis. And he exacted the highest possible standards from us. He made us question our very best. When you had done your very best work, Elvis will make you figure out how it can be better. And we owe our excellence to him. For a long time, I was very worried about how the business will even survive in his absence, because he seemed to be the linchpin. Everything is revolved around him. I was worried. I thought, my goodness, isn't everything going to fall apart? But even there, he proved his value, because in his absence, everybody has risen to the occasion. And that's because of what he taught us. He set up systems that are working even though he's not there. We all know what to do, even though he's not there, because he taught us what to do. That's the kind of legacy that I pray. Look, if I can leave 1/10 of Elvis's legacy, I've succeeded in life.
My final question, a bit on a lighter note. How many times have you had to be addressed as Kojo Yanka? You know, there is a Kojo Yanka who is...
Yeah, there is a Kojo Yankson who also had an illustrious career as a journalist, became a minister, and today is an elder statesman who voices his opinions on many issues, sometimes quite controversially. And then I get phone calls about it, and I get insults from those who disagree with him. I don't think I'll ever shake it. It's just one of those things. I have been introduced at events as Kojo Yankson, and I've had to get up and correct it. I don't know. It's just that we came up through the 70s and 80s and 90s knowing the name Kojo Yankson because of him and what he did. So I think it just lends itself more to retention by the memory than my name, which is a variation that only became public in 2014. So I completely forgive everybody who gets my name wrong. It's absolutely fine. I could be mistaken with much worse people than Kojo Yankson, so it's all right.
Right. This has been PENSDOWN, and today we've had the honor of interacting with Kojo Yankson. I don't want to commit the sin of others by having to give another's identity to him. He suffered enough. He's the host. He sits on the hot seat on Joy FM as the host of the Super Morning Show. This has been PENSDOWN. We'll be back next time with another journalist, and we'll get to know how far they have traveled through their journalism journey. Thanks a lot for being with us. Bye for now.